Hello, Becky here. Welcome back to my channel. I am here to do the mid-year book freakout tag. This is the one tag that I make sure to do every single year, and it's a lot of fun and a great way to check in with my reading and my goals and how things are going. So let's just dive right in because I take forever doing this kind of stuff. So I want to make more videos, but shorter videos. I'm trying to make a lot of vlogs this year, which run about an hour or longer, and I'm trying to keep things short, like under 20 minutes. So let's just jump right in. The first question is, how has your reading gone so far this year? So far it's been good. It's been pretty average and a pretty normal reading year for me. I always set my goal to 75 books in the year, and I am at 39 books right now, and Storygraph tells me that is 3 books ahead, and I am currently reading 4 books on the currently reading on Storygraph. So I am hoping to reach that goal this year, even though I did find out that I am pregnant at the very beginning of the year. Baby's due in October, so I don't know how much I'm gonna get reading in the last quarter of the year, because the baby's due like October 2nd, so all of October, November, and December. Plus, not just having a newborn, but October is Thanksgiving, it is Halloween, my daughter's birthday's in November, my birthday's in November, and then Christmas. The last 3 months or quarter of the year is pretty busy and crazy and hectic for us. So I should probably lower my goal from 75 more to like maybe 65, because I'm already at 39, so I think I can hit 50 for sure. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it at 75 and see how it goes. And as for like loving all the books I'm reading, I have gotten so much better over the years about DNFing books, so I'm not really reading anything that would be under a 3-star anyways. But as always, my struggle is remembering the books. So many people talk about their favorite books and they're just ranting and raving and just loving these books so very much. And while I'm physically reading a book, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. But as soon as I stop reading it, I put it down and then I like forget everything that happened in it. I forget that I even read it, and that's really frustrating. And it's hard to balance wanting to read as many books as I can possibly read in a year, because there's just so many books and you can never ever catch up. The TBR pile is never going to be at 0. And reading slow enough to absorb and love all the books. Not love all the books you're reading, but understand and absorb all that you are reading from them. That being said, question number 2, what is the best book you've read so far in 2025? So I wrote down 3 books that I've read. So everyone has been talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl this year, and Gavin from Gavin Reads It All read the first one at the end of last year and talked about it, and I was like, oh, I think this is a book that my husband would love and I will probably enjoy it as well. We'll try it out. We got the first one, and we have now finished the first 3 Dungeon Crawler Carl books, and we are on to the 4th one, like less than an hour in, I'm pretty sure. But it has been a great audiobook experience for us to listen to together. It's been really fun. It's difficult because there is quite a lot of swearing and adult content in it. It's not sexually explicit, but in every other way there's adult content, and we have 4 kids in the car, and it can be very hard to listen to with them around, so it is taking us a little bit of time to do it, but it has been a fun experience anyway. Because of the way we have to listen to those books, those are books that take us a little bit longer. Any audiobook buddy read thing that my husband and I do, it takes us a little bit longer. So those are the kind of books that do stick with me a little bit more. For anyone who doesn't know what Dungeon Crawler Carl is, it is I think they call it a lit RPG game story, and the first book starts out with Carl in his apartment with his ex-girlfriend's show cat, Princess Donut, and the cat jumps outside the window and is like in a tree or whatever, and he's like, why are you outside? What are you doing? You never leave the apartment. Get back in here. And he can't get her back in, so he ends up going downstairs. He's like in his boxer shorts and that's it kind of thing, and he's down there like yelling at this cat in the tree like, please get down, I need you here. And then all of a sudden the whole world like collapses. His building is gone. Any building around is completely wiped out, and anyone inside those buildings is gone. And these stairwells like open up around the city and all over the world. This has happened. We learn that it's not just in like New York or wherever Carl is. It's not just in the United States or whatever. It's all around the world. And this like voice comes on being like, you're in a game. If you want to live, or at least have a chance of living, go find these stairwells, go down and to level 1, let's get going kind of thing. And you're in a video game basically, but it is being broadcast to the universe, to the world out there that Carl is learning exists now. now. So it is not just a game of survival for his life, it is also a reality TV show. And he is down there with his cat companion, Princess Donut, and she becomes like sentient and can talk to him and stuff once they are down there and in this game. And it's very much like they're playing a game. And like the first book is the tutorial and levels 1 and 2 and learning like not what's a boss, but like mob bosses versus city boss and how to gain experience and all the stuff you need to continue on and survive as many levels as you possibly can. It is pretty funny. Like I said, it can be a little bit crude with the humor and stuff, but it's a fun time and we are enjoying it. I also read One of the Boys by Janie Cowie, and after reading this, I bought her other book. It is called Curfew, and this one was a really interesting book I picked up because I heard about it on the Feminist Book Club podcast, something like that. And this one is really interesting because it is about this test that you can get done on boys. It's not done on girls as much, but I think you can get it done, but it's mostly done on boys. And it is a test to see if they have a violence-causing M gene, and the consequences of having your son tested or not being tested, and the difficult decisions that you have to make with the results that you might get with this test. I'll read the back really quickly. Antonia and Bay are sisters and doting mothers to their sons, but that is where their similarities end. Antonia had her son tested to make sure he didn't possess the violence-causing M gene. Bay refuses to let her son take the test. She believes his life should not be determined by a positive or negative result. These women will go to any lengths to protect their sons, but one of them is hiding a monster, and there will be fatal consequences for everybody. So Antonia has her son tested, but her husband is a pediatrician, and he is one of the leading doctors that came up with the test for this and how to test the kids and all this stuff. And he ends up running a clinic that will help boys that are M positive. So an M positive boy doesn't necessarily mean that he will be violent, but it is a higher risk, a higher chance that he could be violent. And him and his wife ends up doing like kind of like counseling stuff for these families who have M positive boys. So most of them will get tested like at birth, and then they will set up like a program to help you parent your child in a way that will help mitigate the repercussions of having the violence causing gene. So what I found really interesting about this, and what I related to with this, is having a son with ADHD. And people talk about like, should you get an official diagnosis or not have a diagnosis? Who cares? We don't want to label. We don't want to put them in a box. Having the diagnosis helps you in making a plan for what will help that child and the things that you struggle with. Every parent of any child is going to have struggles. There is always going to be things that come up in parenthood, no matter how perfect your child is or isn't. If your child has a learning disability, if they are neurodivergent, if they are just hyperactive, if they're shy and quiet and calm, if they're more loud and boisterous and outgoing, it doesn't matter what your kid's personality is. It doesn't matter what your personality is. It doesn't matter the home environment. You're always going to have struggles in parenting that come up. You're always going to have things that pop up that you need to work through, and challenges, and everyone's challenges are going to be different. And like I said, I have 4 kids, and each kid has had different needs and different challenges that we have had with them. And you know, you learn with your first kid what works in this challenge, and then your second kid has a completely different challenge, or they have a similar challenge, but what you found worked with the first one doesn't work with the second one. So with things like getting a diagnosis like ADHD, everyone has their own opinion about whether you should get tested or not, or if you do get tested so that you do have that quote unquote label, how do you go from there? Do you use medication? Do you not use medication? Is it medication and diet and structure and routine and all this stuff? Do you homeschool or not homeschool? Because school can be very difficult for kids, especially if they're neurodivergent. And homeschooling, you can cater the learning environment more to what your child is like and what is going to help them the best, right? So I really found this I could relate to in that way of having a kid who does have this diagnosis and really struggling with how do we help him, and what about medication? What about routine and structure? What kind of discipline is going to work for him? How can we connect with him specifically and his specific needs, as well as our other children and how they need attention and how they need discipline and how it's different from a kid with a neurodivergent brain, right? So I found this really interesting, and how both women go about it, because one refuses and is like, no, I'm not putting my kid into that box, but then he gets denied like a placement at a good daycare and good schools and stuff, and he has to go into the ones that would be more sketchy, more under the table, kind of like I'm not registered with the government kind of childcare solutions, so it's not regulated or anything like that, and you just got to hope for the best and hope these people are taking good care of your child kind of thing. And you see kids that do have the M positive gene and they are very violent and are living like what you would typically would expect when you hear M positive. This one kid is like very much like that and very violent and difficult and hard to handle kind of thing. Not being tested, they have to do certain jobs that no one else wants to do because no one else is willing to take them on because they can't guarantee this person won't be violent, blah, 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 right? And how it affects society. So I really recommend this if you want commentary on motherhood and how we treat boys and men and things like getting your child tested for whatever it might be, like in the real world, ADHD, right? So I really enjoyed this book this year and the commentary that was spoken about in this. And then I also read Things You Save in a Fire. I read this for one of the buzzwords, I believe. This is Catherine Center. It is a romance, I would say literary romance. And I really loved this book because the romance, I do enjoy romance, but the romance was very much in the background. And this was about our main character, Cassie, and she's a woman firefighter, and she has to move from her old job in Houston, Texas. It's this big city, lots of government funding and everything like that. They're able to get all the newest, latest, greatest technologies for their firehouse. And they're very modern, and having a female fire chief, captain, whatever, that's all normal. And they're just like, yeah, that's cool. No prejudice here kind of thing. And then this incident happens at the very beginning of the book, and Cassie has to move. She ends up moving to Boston in this tiny little town, and it's very much old school. It's all men. We only hired a woman because we had to. You're the one that was the best, most qualified for this job, and all of this stuff, right? They're very much closed off to her being there. And at the same time, another guy gets hired, and he is the rookie. So she is not a rookie in the sense that she is the new person there, but she is a seasoned firefighter, EMT, paramedic person. So she's got even more training and everything because she is able to do more medical stuff and be like in the ambulance and things like that a regular firefighter just does like basic EMT stuff, and she does like more paramedic stuff, I guess. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but she is more trained for that stuff. And she has been doing this for years and whatever. And a rookie is somebody who's like brand new. He's just out of school, joining the fire team, and he's completely new at this, right? So because of the prejudice and everything there, they have Cassie and the rookie always paired up together, and it's like, hey, you're going to teach him how to do splints. You're going to teach him to find a vein for doing blood work. You're going to teach him this and that and whatever. So they always have them paired up, and that's where the romance comes in, but it's very much in the background. And she's dealing with a lot of stuff. The incident that sends her to Boston involves some trauma from her past that she is working through. She moves in with her mother, who she is estranged from. The mother just kind of left her and abandoned her and her dad, and she's really struggling with that. And this was like 10 years ago, but it's still obviously quite a struggle for her, and she's trying to work through that with her mom. And just all this personal stuff is going on in her life, and that's what she's working through. And then there's that sweet little cute romance in the background. So that's what I really loved about this book. Questions 3 and 4, I don't have answers for. What is the best book you've reread so far in 2025? And I have not done a single reread yet this year. I don't know if I will. There's not a lot that I'm dying to reread, and there's just too many new books to read this year. And I'm just bombarded with reading so much right now that I don't think I'm going to get to many rereads. And then number 4 is, what is the best manga you've read so far? And I have not read any manga yet this year, but July is Summerween, and one of the prompts is to read a manga, so I'm going to be catching up on Spy Family, so I'm excited for that. I don't really read a lot of manga anyways, so it's pretty normal for me to have not read anything yet so far this year. What is a new release you haven't read yet, but want to? I have ordered The Strawberry Patch Pancake House that I am really excited to get to. It is by Laurie Gilmore, and she does like the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, the Christmas Tree Farm. Now she's come out with the Strawberry Patch Pancake House, so I'm excited for that. They're cute, sweet, easy to read rom-coms, and I think it'll be really great for the summer. What is a new release is also with a Vengeance by Riley Sager. I just picked this up not that long ago, and I am reading this for Summerween as well. What is your most anticipated book for the second half of the year? I am very excited for and just pre-ordered The Baby Dragon Cafe. I have not heard the best things about it, but I'm still excited for it. I think it'll be cute. I've heard basically that you could just remove the dragons and it could be like a dog cafe or a cat cafe, and I'm okay with that. I like cozy fantasy, and I'm okay with it not being like super detailed, I guess, but I'm sad that it's been getting such bad reviews. But I'm still excited for it, and I still bought it. And then A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, which I read The Secret Society of Irregular Witches last year or the year before or whatever it came out, and fell in love with that book. So I'm excited for A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. What is the worst book you've read so far in 2025? I put down Behind Her Eyes. I read that as a buzzword in January. I'm trying to think of what the buzzword was. But I read that, and it's about this psychologist who gets called into people's homes. So it's usually more a richer clientele, and they invite her in, and she spends like a week living with them and observing them and seeing what the dynamics are like, and then doing like counseling sessions, therapy stuff. And she ends up in this house, and it's very toxic and not great at all. And there's a bit of a mystery there. There's a bit of like, did somebody die? What's this cover up? They're a very obviously rich family, and she knows that there's some kind of cover up somewhere happening, and she's trying to be like a detective and figure that out while also doing her job. It was okay. It wasn't like the worst book ever. I read it quite quickly. It's the first in a series, so maybe it gets better. I don't plan on continuing with it. I think I got it for free or for like $1.99 on BookBub for the Kobo. So it just happened to work for the buzzword because I couldn't find a buzzword that I needed for that month, and that one worked. So that is why I ended up reading it, and I'm not going to continue with it, but I think it has potential to get better. Anyways, it wasn't the worst, but not the best book. What is your biggest disappointment of the year so far? So I read a book called Prophet by Frank Peretti. He was one of my favorite authors when I was like 19, 20, 21, and I started reading Christian fiction books, and his are like horror thriller kind of books, as well as Ted Dekker. Ted Dekker is one of my favorite Christian authors. He writes fantasy, which is okay, but I prefer his thriller stuff. And then Frank Peretti, some of his books that I have, like The Oath and Piercing the Darkness and This Present Darkness and Monster, I think is one of them, like scared me. Like actively, I didn't like them. Like I liked them, but they scared me. And I read Prophet because I heard it was good, and it is very much heavy-handed Christian message, and it has some really good commentary about the abortion debate, and this takes place in the 90s, I believe. 80s or 90s. There's some stuff about abortion in there, and it has some really good commentary from a Christian perspective, of course. If you're not a Christian, I wouldn't necessarily suggest it because it is pretty heavy-handed and it'll probably make you angry, but I thought the conversation was really good and interesting. But overall, it wasn't the best book, and luckily I was able to get an audiobook of it and listen to it that way. I'm glad I did get all the way through it, but it just wasn't what I was hoping it would be because of how much I loved his other books in the past. Who is your favorite new author? So that can be new to you or a debut author. And I can't think of any authors, but Janie Cowie, I read this book and went and bought the second book right away, which I haven't read yet, but this author is definitely someone I'm interested in because I loved the commentary that she had here. Books that made you cry so far this year. So I read Hamnet and Judith by Maggie O'Farrell, and I was not expecting for this book to make me cry. I picked it up after Olivia from Stories with Coffee talked about it and how much she just loved it, and just the passion that she had when talking about it made me want to buy it, and I did. And then several years later, I hadn't read it yet, and I heard other people talking about it and how slow it was and just the kind of story it was, and I was like, maybe it's not for me. I'm not sure, but I ended up picking it up this year. This is a story about, it's England 1580. A young Latin tutor, penniless, bullied by a violent father, falls in love with an eccentric young woman, a wild creature who walks her family's estate with a falcon on her shoulder and is known throughout the countryside for her unusual gifts as a healer. This young Latin tutor, his name is never mentioned. His gifts as a writer are just beginning to awaken when their beloved twins, Hamnet and Judith, are afflicted with the bubonic plague, and devastatingly, one of them succumbs to the illness. A luminous portrait of a marriage, a shattering evocation of a family ravaged by grief and loss, and a hypnotic recreation of the story that inspired one of the greatest literary masterpieces of all time. Hamnet and Judith is mesmerizing and seductive, an impossible to put down novel from one of our most gifted writers. So I got the audiobook for this and did it like a tandem read, and I really loved the audiobook. I really loved the narrator and her accent, so I would suggest the audiobook for this if you are interested in reading this. And I did read it physically as well. There's not a ton of plot. It just kind of, I don't know, it's just one of those kind of slow stories. Not a lot is happening. A lot of it's not in the present time that the story is taking place in 1580 with the twins being sick. A lot of it is like leading up to the sickness. A lot of it is the Latin tutor and the eccentric young woman, how they got together, their story, their marriage, their families, all this stuff. That's why I kind of thought I wouldn't like it, but sometimes those stories just work for me. And this one worked for me, and it does involve the death of one of the twins who is older. They're like 8 years old or something, so it's not infant, but it's still child loss. And I just had to put the book down and bawl my eyes out. Like, I just cried so much. It was just because you were getting the perspective from the mother and her feelings of how she failed to protect her child. So it was very heartbreaking that way. So this book definitely is one that made me cry. So my phone storage filled up and I was unable to finish this tag before it all filled up, unfortunately. But let's jump right back in. Question number 13, what is the most beautiful book you've bought this year? So for the Besties Book Club over on Kayla's Books and Lala's channel, we bought Watermoon. I never get like fancy editions or anything like that, so I loved this one because of the hardback itself was so beautiful, not just the slipcover on it. And then they have instructions on how to fold up this little paper boat that you use with the slipcover. So I have not made it yet, but I wanted to with my husband, so we'll get to that eventually. But I just thought this was a really beautiful book cover that I got. And then I just recently got my pre-order in for With a Vengeance. This isn't my favorite cover of all time. I don't think it's beautiful, but I really like the kind of vintage feel, and I really like the spine on it. There we go. I really like the spine. I don't know why. I just like this vintage feel. It's not the most beautiful book cover. I read Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan earlier this year and loved it. I bought the sequel, This Could Be Us, and I absolutely love these covers, and with like the gold foiling stuff on it, it's just absolutely gorgeous. So this one, and then I just recently got this little book sleeve from Kohl's, and this book I ordered, and this is one of my favorite covers. Like this cover here, I find really beautiful. This cover, I think it's got a lot of cute elements in it that I love. Like there's a teapot here with a unicorn. Like that's so cute. The little dragon egg with the dragon hatching out of it, adorable. The little like sunflower in the corner. Like I just think there's so many little elements in it that are really cute and fun. And it also has sprayed edges, which I never get, but because Kohl's and Chapters and stuff has started putting out so many books where everything is a special edition now, I finally got a book with sprayed edges, so I really love this cover as well. What are the books you need to read by the end of the year? So I have all of the books all the time. My answer to this question every year is all of the books. But This Could Be Us and All Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby I got for July Noir, which is the last 2 weeks of July. I will share a link to Bree's channel in the description box below where she talks about what July Noir is. So I will share that, but I have these 2 books for July Noir. Hopefully I can find enough prompts to fit them into. And then With a Vengeance, we are reading in July for the Literally Dead Book Club, the Book Troop Book Club, and I'm also reading this for Summerween. I will share links again in the description box for all of those things. So I'm excited about this. I also have Notes on an Execution that I'm reading for one of my vlogs, and Remarkably Bright Creatures, which I'm reading for another one of my vlogs. So those are a couple of the books I want to finish reading, and every month I do the Buzzword Cover Challenge and the Buzzword Word Title Challenge, so I want to do those as well. Whatever books will fit into those, I didn't quite look at that yet, but yeah, just so many books I want to get to. Hopefully I can get to a majority of them. What is your favorite video that you've made so far this year? So the video that I made last year but finally got fully edited and posted this year was Reading Like Katie Colson, which was a vlog of me reading the 3 Abby Jimenez books. I put so much time and effort into that video, and finally got it put up this year. So I'm so happy about that. And then one of my mommy moment videos talking about this pregnancy and the feelings that it has brought up and my struggle with coping with getting pregnant again and it not being part of the plan anyways. So I am glad I was finally able to share my thoughts and feelings and work through that in that video. I haven't done a lot of videos this year, but just a couple cleaning videos that I've posted that have been motivating for me to clean my house. So that's been good as well. But I'm just so happy with the Reading Like Katie Coulson vlog. There's another BookTube related question in here about which video did you think would flop but did well. None of my videos really do well. I haven't had any videos like go viral or anything like that, so I don't really have an answer for that one. Any upcoming videos that you're excited for? So I am currently doing 2 vlogs that I'm filming for. One is for the Notes on an Execution. I am reading books that are kind of in that vein. I've read Chain Gang All-Stars and Bright Young Women for that vlog, and then I want to read Notes on an Execution and have those 3 books in that vlog. So I'm working on that, and then Books and Lala's June readathon kind of thing that we're doing over on the membership is called Sell Your Soul. So I'm reading books for that as well. I have like 100 books to read for that. So I'm excited about that one. And then in July, there's the 2 readathons that I'm a part of, Summerween and July Noir. So I'm excited to do some vlogging for that as well. And then the last question that I got these questions from Gavin Reads It All. And the last question he has on here are any channel goals by the end of the year? And for me, it is just about being consistent. I'm terrible at consistency and expecting a baby in October. So the end of the year might not get a lot of content out, but I'm hoping to get a lot of content out for this summer. Anyways, that is all the questions. So I was going through the questions afterwards and started editing and everything like that, and I realized I forgot some. Editing me here, popping in to answer all of the questions. Okay, so I believe I forgot number 5. What is the best sequel you've read so far this year? So I caught up with the Wayward Children series by Shauna McGuire, and I read Mislaid in Parts Half Known and Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear, and I really loved those books. I have also, like I mentioned, read the first 3 Dungeon Crawler Carl books. So I mentioned that the first one was one of my favorite books of the year, but I've also enjoyed the sequels as well. When I read a series like that, especially like in a row, like we started it in January and it's now June, and we've read the first 3 and started the 4th one, what happens in each book just kind of gets jumbled in my brain. So I don't necessarily say like my favorite is the first or the third or whatever, but I've been enjoying those sequels and I'm really loving the Wayward Children as well. I would love to one day own the books physically because I've listened to all 10 of them as audiobooks, and one day I would love to own them physically where I can like highlight and annotate and stuff. Oh, and a new release I haven't read yet but want to is called Favorite Daughter, about these 2 women who their father dies, but they don't know that they're sisters. And something happens where they end up meeting up and eventually learning about each other, I guess. I'm not 100% sure, but when I read the synopsis for it, when I was going through books I wanted to pre-order, that was one of them and it sounded really interesting. I talked about my biggest disappointment being Prophet from Frank Peretti because he was such a beloved author when I read him originally. I did not talk about what is the biggest surprise of the year so far for me. So that was the Literally Dead Book Club pick Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang that I read for the Literally Dead Book Club. And I don't typically read horror. I don't find horror necessarily scary, but gory and gross and disgusting. And that's very much what this book was. And it had some very descriptive scenes and very intense and very gross, but also had some really good commentary on COVID. This book takes place like right when COVID is starting. So it's at the very beginning when everything is all hyped up and crazy and no one knows what's going on or anything. And people are very much negative towards and hating on anyone who looks Asian, and Cora Zhang is Chinese, and the hate and stuff that she experiences from complete strangers is absolutely insane. And I know what happens, but to see it in your face the way it is described in this book sometimes is shocking. I'm like, people don't actually act like that. People don't actually think that way, do they? But sadly I know that they do. And so this book has some horror elements in it that are very much horror because of the creatures in it, but also horror as in the way humanity acts. It's insane. But I really enjoyed that book, actually, for how much you can enjoy a book like that. It was my biggest surprise of the year so far because I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. As well as I talked about Hannah and Judith. I wasn't expecting to love that book as much as I did. I kind of thought I would not end up liking it, but I thought it was beautifully written. I loved the audiobook and it made me cry. And I think those are the only questions I forgot. Actually, I think with this mid-year freakout tag, I think it has changed a lot over the years since the original person who created it. And people have taken away questions that don't really pertain to them. People add questions. And I know one of the questions there was, what book has made you cry? But I think there was one that was also like, what was funny? What made you laugh this year? So for me, I'll answer that one anyways. The Husbands. I just read that one recently. That's going to be in my Sell Your Soul vlog. So watch for that one. That one actually made me laugh out loud. And I am currently reading Anxious People by Fredrik Backman, and that one I have laughed several times. And then I think people also talk about your latest like bookish crush. I don't get like a crush where I think like the question is asking. I feel like that's more of like a YA when you're a teen and you're crushing on the love interests in these books. I haven't read a ton of romance yet this year either. But I did talk about Things You Save in the Fire, and that guy was just like super sweet and cute. And like I mentioned, that romance wasn't very much in the forefront in your face. It was very much in the background, but he was really sweet and adorable. I enjoyed that one, I guess, like the one romance I've read this year so far. Thank you for watching again. Please comment down below. Let's have a conversation about our reading year so far in 2025, and I will see you later. Bye!